Pakistan's mainstream media plays a crucial role in bringing the plight of women to the knowledge of the public. But is it really fulfilling its responsibility? Sadly, the answer is no. Although, on the surface, it may appear that women are getting the representation they deserve. The truth is, in many cities and villages across Pakistan, there is a clear gender bias in the newsroom as well as in news bulletins. Media projection of women has always been controlled and marginalized by men. While this may not be true for all private television channels, the male-dominated media scenario is proving a major deterrent for women aspiring to enter this profession. Equality, meritocracy, these are merely urban legends. While there are more women today in the mainstream media in the capacity of reporters, camera persons, sub-editors, news anchors or producers, it is also true that very few women are reporting from rural districts and small towns. And what about top brass female management? Many write columns, but very few women are editorial writers. There are more producers than directors or editors. Then why the absence of women in key decision-making positions? The facts don't lie. If we look at Pakistan's entire media history, no woman has ever been the editor of an Urdu daily. Dr. Maliha Lodi, editor, The Muslim and The News International, and Dr. Shiri Mazari, editor, The Nation, are the only two women who have headed English language dailies. Arifa Noor is the first woman resident editor of Daily Dawn, along with Aisha Haroon, Bina Sarwar, Kamla Hayat, and Katrina Hussain, who made it as resident editors or editors of different editions of newspapers. Associated Press of Pakistan, the official wire agency, had women working for it since the 1960s, but has never had a woman director general. Pakistan Broadcasting Corporation has never had women at the top positions. Pakistan Television had one woman as its managing director and one or two women as regional heads. Same is the case with most of the private television and FM radio channels. Then we have the big gap between the number of female students in university departments of mass communication and their visibility in media. All major universities in Pakistan have mass communication departments, and most have high representation of female students. In some universities, they outnumber male students, yet when it comes to entering the practical field, we find very few women in the media, especially in the newsrooms. Denying a woman her big opportunity, her one shot at her dreams. How long must this go on? We at UX have been strong advocates of bringing forward women in media. With over 200 countrywide members in just a few months, our network is a platform for women in the media, print and electronic, to exchange as well as share information, resources and ideas. We stand for women's fair and equal representation in the media organizations, both private and state-owned. But as we look to the future, we must not forget our past. UX is proud to recognize and pay tribute to the leading names that have set a great example for an entire generation. These are women of substance, and this is their story.
It's been a great innings, over 30 years now, and I don't know how many more years I have left. But going back, one thing that I want to make very clear is that there's no such thing as issues and problems of a woman journalist. If there is a problem that women face, they face problems in all professions. Coming down to the younger generation, it's interesting that I cannot identify with the problems and the issues that the younger women journalists are having. Maybe it's the kind of people that we worked with, the editors and senior journalists and the atmosphere. But I think these young women now have to find answers to their specific problems.
जो लड़कियां नेचुरली इस फील्ड के अंदर आ रही हैं, एक तो ये कि हिम्मत रखें, कोई चीज़ इम्पॉसिबल नहीं है, एवरीथिंग इज़ पॉसिबल ऑन अर्थ एंड यू कैन डू एवरीथिंग, क्योंकि माइंड सेट जो है वो नहीं बदल रहा। आप सब काम कर सकते हैं क्योंकि आपने ज़्यादा अल्लाह ताला ने एनर्जी दी है। सिर्फ आपने compete करना है, डिफ़ीट करना है लोगों को, और आप एक दफ़ा ठान लें कि आपने इस यहाँ सस्टेन करना है और आपको चैलेंजिंग होना पड़ेगा। मैं कभी भी सर्वाइव ना कर सकती जितनी मैंने मुश्किलें अपने करियर में देखी हैं, बट मैंने अगर सर्वाइव किया है तो वो इस वजह से कि मैं चैलेंजिंग थी, मेरी तबीयत जो थी वो चैलेंजिंग थी। सो चैलेंजेस के तौर पे इसको चैलेंजिंग लें और इस चैलेंज को इस तरह से करें कि जितने आपके सामने लोग हैं वो तस्लीम करें कि हाँ नहीं ये जो है ये वाकई इस फील्ड के अंदर कुछ सर करने के लिए निकली है, और वो जो सर करने का गुरूर है वो आपका सरमाया होना चाहिए। ख़वातीन के लिए मेरा मैसेज है।
We have a lot of outstanding women in Pakistan who started their career in the 60s and the 70s, and some names we've already shown clips of, some interviews we have already recorded, but there are some names which we could not include, and I would like to pay my tribute to those women who are alive and some of them who are not with us anymore. We have, for example, Shahida Qazi in 1966. Ms. Qazi, who was also a gold medalist from the University of Karachi. She joined Dawn as its first woman reporter. She then later in the 70s became a news editor at PTV. We also have Razia Bhatti, who started her career from Illustrated Weekly of Pakistan and then became the editor of Herald, and then she started Newsline, which was a predominantly women magazine. That was in 1989. We have Nigar Nazar, who was the first woman cartoonist of Pakistan.
The most difficult part of becoming a woman journalist at a time when one had few female contemporaries was the loneliness one felt. There was no one to share your thoughts with. There was no mentor either. Being the only woman around posed a problem. I didn't know how male colleagues perceived my role in the media. Lacking the strength of numbers, I played it safe. In other words, I remained discreet, and I found that paid off. People left me alone to get on with my work. I had come to Dawn for a while, stepping out of the comfort-bound routine of my home. Throughout my long career, I ensured that I remained a professional, striving all the time to improve my skills. I enhanced my knowledge and understanding of the issues I wrote about. This helped me in situations where the bosses wanted a job well done. I would advise all younger colleagues to strive for the same. It makes a lot of difference because it allows you to present a woman's perspective on every issue. I was lucky in that my editor was very liberal-minded as far as women's rights and empowerment went. Hence, it wasn't a continuous battle for me to get my writings published. As a leader writer, I managed to give the paper a focus on women's issues, and that gave me great satisfaction. Glass ceilings? They are everywhere for both men and women. They didn't worry me. If you are confident, you achieve more than you would breaking the glass ceilings.
अब से 26 साल पहले मैं मीडिया से वाबस्ता हुई थी, और चूँकि मैंने कराची से ज्वाइन किया था पीटीवी को, तो पीटीवी में उस वक्त ख़वातीन थी हमसे सीनियर, कम थी मगर थी, और बहुत अच्छा माहौल था, बहुत अच्छी तरह काम करते थे, सब कोऑपरेट करते थे। वुमेन इश्यूज़ पे काम करना जब से मैंने शुरू किया और उनके मसाइल के लिए प्रोग्राम किया, और उनको तब से पता चला कि सोसाइटी कितनी खौफनाक है और क्यों लोग एक्सेप्ट नहीं करते औरत की हुकूक के हक़ के लिए बात करना और उसे आगे लाना। अब जिस तादाद में लड़कियां मीडिया पे आ रही हैं, मीडिया के लिए काम कर रही हैं, ये बहुत अच्छी बात है।
We have Anis Mirza, who started her career in journalism from the Illustrated Weekly of Pakistan in 1948. Ms. Mirza then went on to become, perhaps, I think she was the first woman journalist to start covering the National Assembly. She used to write the press gallery. We also have Jahanara Sayyed, who was the first English newscaster of Pakistan, and she had joined Radio Pakistan in Karachi in the 1950s, and then she read news till 1965.
Being the first female sports, or more specifically cricket reporter, to use today's jargon, was an awesome experience indeed. I got to interact with the heroes of the cricket field and rub shoulders with, metaphorically, with all those journalists whose articles I had been reading. I encountered surprise, some traces of a patronizing attitude, but mostly I got encouragement from players as well as colleagues who took me along on my journey of learning to write about a game I loved but had never played. This was my entry point into journalism, and I never really looked back despite my forays into advertising. Journalism enabled me to gather a variety of experiences as I sampled fields like aviation, energy, automobiles, and environment. It wasn't always easy because, unlike the male colleagues in the sports field, my access to the players was limited. They were mobile and could mingle with the players socially, which was not the done thing for a female in those days, way back in the 70s and 80s. As for the glass ceiling, I can't deny its existence, as I know many who have experienced it professionally. Maybe I was one of the few lucky ones. I became the editor of the largest and most popular cricket magazine of the country, and my articles were printed in the best newspapers of Pakistan. I was also on the editorial board of the official publications of the Cricket Board and was asked to collaborate and write autobiography of the best batsman Pakistan had produced, Hanif Mohammad, and edit the one written by Pakistan's most successful captain, Mushtaq Mohammad. So I can't really complain, can I? But then neither should the newcomers. The opportunities are there. Grasp them, prove yourself worthy of them, and you will find the sky is really the limit, with no ceiling in between.
My experience as a journalist is perhaps different from others because I belong to an organization which is headed by a female editor and has predominantly women on the editorial staff. Secondly, because it is a small independent organization, I have always enjoyed the freedom to write on what I want to by volunteering ideas instead of simply being assigned stories. However, I am not in a position to comment on the patterns of the larger corporate media environment. As far as the glass ceiling is concerned, I personally have not encountered it, or for that matter any hurdles as such. Neither has being a young journalist or a female in this profession stopped me in any way from achieving anything or doing my job. What I would say to new entrants is that journalism is definitely a field you can prove yourself in, regardless of age and gender. Yes, it can be challenging, whether it is the hours or stories, which require you to meet, speak with people, and be out in places you would otherwise normally never be in. Nevertheless, it is a great learning experience. The environment is not necessarily clean either. It will vary from organization to organization, etc., but it's about how you handle yourself. The advantage with being a print journalist is that what you write is yours at the end of the day, and that can never really taken away from you. What I would warn against, however, is being swept away by the breaking news phenomenon, which has crippled our media's better sense. This is something to be careful about. The few minutes of fame do not trump proper investigation and verification, after which news information is and should be put out in the public domain. Time and again we have seen how this overzealous attitude of breaking news has at times revealed names of victims, survivors, which should never have been announced or created unnecessary hype. There have been instances where the death toll has decreased instead of mounting, seemingly with the death coming back to life. Go into a system by assessing its strengths and weaknesses because it will have both. There is never a perfect model and there is absolutely no need to emulate the weaknesses. If things work a certain way, they don't always have to remain so. And look at what you do or the story you create from an audience's perspective. How eligible are you making the story for them?
We have Najma Babar, who joined the Star in 1981, moved on to Dawn, and Najma has written some very courageous articles. There is Zohra Yusuf, who in 1982 started she was the editor of Star's Weekend magazine, and she had a whole team of women, which included Bina Sarwar, Sania Hussain, Tahmina Hussain, Seba Sarwar, Anjum Niaz. Zohra now heads HRCP.
I was asked to take over as a general manager of PTV Lahore in 1998. It was not an easy assignment and took a lot of soul searching before I agreed to take it on. The reason being, the management and the union leaders were at loggerheads. Production from PTV Lahore was at an all-time low and the financial situation was just as bad. However, I took this on as a challenge, being the first and as yet only woman to head a PTV center. Since I had spent most of my career in Lahore, I knew each and every employee by name and therefore had a rapport with him or her. My heads of departments were honest and good professional people who rallied to my support and stood behind me as I brought in major policy changes. The top management also supported me, and PTV Lahore Center won many laurels and awards during my tenure, which is today the longest for a GM.
We have Afshan Subui, who's the editor of Dawn's Economic and Business Review, probably the first woman to head an economic and business section of a newspaper. We have a young girl called Farzana Ali. She's from a television network in Peshawar, and she covers conflict as well. And she has recently produced a documentary, in fact, a heart-rending documentary called Real Face of the War Against Terror, showing the human side and the cost of war. Now, and we have a barrage of newcomers. Some of them are outstanding, some of them are struggling. I do hope that there would be more, and I do hope that the youngcomers would keep in mind that Pakistan has always had women in journalism, although few in numbers, but they have been outstanding. So good luck to the newcomers, and my salute to ones who we have had in the past.